You have 10 minutes.
Well, the Minister for Finance began by saying that more information has been made available before this budget than ever before. And it is true that we have a lot of information about the state of our economy now. And a lot of it was contained in the pre-budget outlook which was published last week. And it tells us the following. It tells us that the economy will contract by 7.5% this year and estimates contraction of 1.5% next year. And taken with the fall of 3% in GDP in 2008, this is one of the worst recessions experienced by any developed country since the Second World War. It tells us that unemployment rate will average 11.75% in 2009 and 13.7% in 2010. That employment will fall by 7.75% in 2009 and by 3.75% in 2010. Recent data shows that unemployment in Ireland is now the second highest in the OECD and a third higher than the Eurozone average. The pre-budget outlook shows us that confidence in the economy is now so low that consumption will fall at a greater rate than incomes. Consumption, according to the outlook, will fall by 7.5% in 2009 and 3.5% in 2010 in response to a rising savings rate. It tells us that the Exchequer borrowing requirement for 2009 will be nearly 26 billion and for next year, after corrective action, will be nearly 20 billion. That the general government deficit for 2009 and 2010 will be 12% of GDP, 4 times the Stability Pact target. By the end of 2009, the level of national debt is set to be double the 2007 level. By the end of 2010, the general government debt is forecast to reach 78% of GDP. And the cost of paying for all of this has been pushed up by the mishandling of the banking crisis. The cost of 10-year government debt issued in today's auction is some 140 basis points above bond rates. Indeed, the money that's been handed over to the banks already, 4 billion to Anglo, 7 billion between Allied Irish Banks and Bank of Ireland, and that's before we come to look at the 7 billion that may be lost in the NAMA project. That, a Cathaoirleach, is the legacy of Fianna Fáil after 12 years in government. In any other democracy, a government with that record would have resigned or fallen in the face of those economic failures. And when Deputy O'Rourke says that the only policy that the opposition has is a general election, dead right, because the only solution to this is a general election and the sweeping from office of the government and the main party which is principally responsible for this tragedy for our economy. Because your only policy appears to be the policy of the brass neck. Because Fianna Fáil and the Greens have now tied themselves together and to office, and their only answer to the economy now is to demand to know what is the opposition going to do about it. Now, the Labour Party has been clear that the fiscal deficit must be dealt with and dealt with now rather than the adjustment being delayed. And we have therefore accepted that an adjustment of approximately 4 billion is required in the coming year. And we should not pretend that this will be easy. Such is the scale of the problem that Fianna Fáil has created. This will be a difficult adjustment, no matter how it is done. But what we must seek is to ensure is that the least damage is done to the economy and that the burden of adjustment is fair. Where we face choices is in the make-up of those adjustments. Now, last April, the government itself, through the Minister for Finance, when he spoke in the budget debate, set out a mixed approach to the 4 billion adjustment, consisting of 1.75 billion in taxation, 1.5 billion in current spending and $750 million in capital spending cuts. Since then, however, the government has utterly shifted their position, explicitly advancing the argument that there is an economic benefit from cutting expenditure alone. And the Minister for Finance today, in a speech in which he told us nothing, might at least have offered an explanation as to why he has shifted his policy and why government policy has shifted as to the mix that should go to make up the 4 billion adjustment. Because the government position now is a dangerously partial and one-dimensional reading of the situation which ignores important economic and social realities. For the budget to succeed, it must first be credible to both domestic and international audiences. To achieve that credibility requires a realistic policy mix, including spending reductions and revenue raising. It must also be fair and be seen to be fair. Where possible, the measures adopted should be based on reform. Reform of taxation, reform of spending and reform of administration. I have already said that we should have a negotiated reduction in the public sector pay bill. That must be knitted into an agenda of reform in the public service, something that Labour has been calling for years. Across-the-board pay cuts are an admission of failure because they will not deliver the sort of changes in working practices and organisation of the public service that we need. We need, firstly, a minister for public service reorganisation, but we also need far more autonomy and responsibility to be devolved to departments and agencies. As capital budgets were increased during the bubble, tender price inflation eroded the volume of output that was achieved. Now tender prices in construction are falling. The Society of Chartered Surveyors estimate that tender prices for general construction fell by 17% in the second half of 2008 and the first half of 2009. So commensurate savings can be made on the capital budget without affecting the level of activity. Reductions in capital budgets must, however, be accompanied by two policy changes. Firstly, we need a new national development plan that takes account of changed economic circumstances and that sets out a clear set of priorities for government investment. We can no longer afford the laid-back approach to capital budgeting that has been seen to date. Secondly, the government should move on proposals to access non-traditional sources of investment financing to deliver on infrastructural needs without impacting on the general government balance. There are a number of ways in which this can be done, including through a national investment bank. Again, there were promises made in the April emergency budget, but nothing has happened. If spending cuts are to be part of the budget mix, as they must be, so must revenue raising, which must be accompanied by reform. Ireland simply cannot afford the huge array of tax expenditures that are still in the system. Labour has identified many of these over the years. There is still more than 600 million in rent relief for landlords, more than 400 million in property-based tax reliefs, and a series of reliefs across the system that are too generous in present circumstances and which can be pared back. Labour will also support a carbon tax, which would raise about £500 million. And we need to seek a contribution from the better off in society. Labour has proposed a third rate of tax on single incomes over €100,000. And the government must deal with the scandal of tax exiles who are not making their contribution. You cannot talk the language of fairness, but then insist on pursuing cuts in social welfare without seeking any contribution from the best off in society. There are choices. There are real options if the government has the courage to embrace them, but it doesn't and it won't. I do not accept that there is only one way to deal with this problem, nor do I accept that the person who wants to inflict the most pain on the weakest sections of society somehow has the greatest grasp of the problem. Frankly, we've had enough of that kind of undergraduate advice. It shows little understanding of the past and no regard for the future. There is a dangerously divisive tone to public debate in our country now. Fianna Fáil are promoting a beggar-my-neighbour approach in the hope that by dividing the country, by isolating and demonising particular sections of our society and our workforce, they can pretend that those sectors alone can carry the burden of adjustment. That is a false choice. That is a sum that doesn't add up. We will not get through this crisis by creating division. The problem cannot be hived off onto the backs of one group or another. It can only be dealt with all of us pulling together. And we will only get through this crisis on the basis of unity and a negotiated national agreement. If we abandon the partnership approach now, it could take a generation to restore it. People who are sent away from the negotiating table now will not be enticed back when things improve. You will be faced with conflict now and higher wage claims when the economy starts to recover. It will serve no one's interest to go down the road of conflict and industrial action. I say that not just here, but I've already said it at trade union conferences. That is why I have advanced a set of 5 proposals that I believe should form the basis for negotiations on a new agreement for national recovery. A moratorium on home repossessions, a coherent job strategy, a negotiated agreement on public sector pay, a budget based on fairness and industrial peace.